Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Chapter 13 Advaitam Inner and Outer. In the last para, Perival talks about world movements being seen by the man in ignorance and not being seen by the Jnani. World movements is a word to be given attention to. We could call it vibrations. Every event is a movement. So is everything. Every iota of existence, a movement in space or time. There is a debate still going on in physics as to whether ultimately matter is made up of particles or waves. Now we are covering the chapter Agamum Puramum, meaning the inner and outer. Refer to page 62 of the first volume of Deivathin Kural in Tamil. Everybody in this world are all the time endlessly running from pillar to post. For what? So as to fulfill their desires, isn't it? His or her love is towards things outside the self, but satisfaction never comes when the desired thing is achieved. Desire is immediately directed towards something else. The process of running after the desired object continues endlessly. Satisfaction or shanti is never attained. How can anyone attain happiness till the search is directed out? What is outside is not in our control. It may be achievable or may not be. There is no certainty that once having come under your control, it will remain so. What comes can also go. As you think that it has arrived, it may be on the way out. To look for permanent happiness in things outside is really asking for trouble. It is an effort to spoil the existing peace of mind. Why does one search for happiness? It is because of the fact that we are inwardly Ananda Swarupa, meaning the very personification of happiness. Somewhere inside, we know this fact. We vaguely remember, but we have forgotten. So we are searching. So we are researching. So we are recreating. See how the meanings of the words have evolved. Because of Maya, man has forgotten his reality, that he is Ananda Swarupa. Note, Swarupa means self-form. Swabhava means self-nature. Somehow, the memory of oneself that one is happiness personified drives human beings to attain happiness. Is there anyone who goes after sadness instead of happiness? Instead of realizing that the happiness one is looking for is inside, we search for it everywhere else, like a cat running after its own tail and never be able to catch it. Whereas, if only we resort to meditation of one's own self with God's blessings, we should be able to see that we are ourself, the object of this search. When an ocean of happiness is inside, we run after for drops of it outside. Once this point is understood, we will not run after happiness anymore. We will remain like the Ananda Sagara that we are, wherein all the rivers of happiness pour in. As Gita chapter 2 shloka 70 says, Apuryamana Machala Pratishtam Samudram. We will be totally filled from all sights and based in stillness and satisfied. Even the highest position and power, like that of the Lord of the gods, Devendra, the king of celestial beings, cannot match this sense of satisfaction. His level of satisfaction is likely to be a fraction of this Atma Shanti says Adi Shankara in Manisha Panchakam. Position, power, money, people, fame, and name. The list goes on. How will it be if an ocean is thirsting for a drop of water? It is wrong to feel bad like this. We have no deficiency. We need nothing. We are complete within. There is nothing outside. The out is in. Let anything come, like the ocean includes the incoming river in itself, we will accept. All the happiness is already here. It does not matter if there is no input. Let us be with the clarity that, after all, wherever is outside is a different form of the indwelling Paramatma. Chapter 14 Advaitam, How to Reduce the Load of Sorrow. We should all try to attain true jnanam. What is that? There is nothing other than God. Whatever name you assign it, the only reality is that and nothing else. The one is seen as everything. As long as our minds are involved in appearances, the problems of disparities will continue. To turn one's mind away from these appearances, one should get to know the basic reason or logic of existence. Once we come to recognize that the basis is one, then where is the scope for comparisons? In that is the permanent state of bliss, and that is known as jnanam. In the worldly life, satisfaction and happiness seems to be there, but it is so temporary. How can we make this happiness last? What comes can go also. What is satisfying one moment vanishes in the next. Let us say that we are looking at the sun's rays falling through the levels of a tree. Now you see the light and now you don't. In the sadness of life, happiness seems to be so transient. The only way out is to know that our satisfaction is not dependent on conditions. It is our reality. It is our birthright. Sadness is an avoidable option. It is surprising that no one is spared. One may think that rich people do not have such problem. One may presume that people in positions of power are beyond the reach of sorrow. Thinking so, one may aspire to achieve wealth and power. If you ask a rich man as to what are his problems, he is likely to tell you a story of epic proportions. If you are sitting in a low stool and fall, you may sustain some sprain. Higher we go, greater the fall. Actually, a rich man has an additional problem of protecting his health. So, in this world, nobody says that he is happy. Even when he says so, he will know that he is bluffing or trying to impress the listeners. Everyone thinks of himself or herself as the smartest, handsomest, brainiest, and simultaneously saddest and most understood. Sadness seems to be our kin. The reason for this is that we have sown the seeds of sorrow even before we are born. There seems to be no escape, but there is some method in the madness. We can learn to bear our ill fate. We can learn to not add to the agony by refusing to commit the same error as we have done in the past. If we become inert due to brain damage, we do not suffer. But in that state, we are not happy either. In deep sleep, we are not unhappy, but neither are we aware. Only a jnani or the realized is wakeful and permanently happy. Not that there won't be any bodily ache or pain or wearing out, but he will be rid of apprehensions and worries. The outer condition do not affect his inner being. In a well, a filled bucket seems to weigh less when submerged in water. Once above the water level, it seems to weigh more. This principle is used to move heavy timber in waters. Similarly, let us merge our problems in the river flow of Jnanam. There will be problems, but they will be easily managed. Chapter 15 Advaitam Yogi. If sadness or unhappiness does not touch someone, he is a yogi. Sin or the dirt of the mind is the cause of all happiness. When the mind is cleansed of dirt, it automatically turns towards God. Control and discipline are the essentials for cleansing the mind. Before the body and life are separated from each other, the mind has to be cleansed of all the dirt by proper education and the disciplined life of regular practice. In such a case, the separation from the body will become a defeat turned into a victory. How to identify a yogi? His mind, once turned towards God, will not vacillate. Then all the problems arising out of the mind's vacillations will vanish. How to do this? Take the mind to its source, its origin. Then the mind will melt. It will not move. Manolaya leads to Manonasa or Manonigraha. That is the ultimate stage of liberation. There is a river. Where did it start from? The ocean is its source. From there it went out into the air as the stream and penultimately became the river. What running around it undergoes? It becomes a trickle, a rivulet, a channel, a big canal, then a small river, then a big river, before ultimately finally falling into the ocean. By then, it loses its shape, its name, its separateness, and the restlessness. As the ocean is the depository for all the rivers, God is the source and the end point for all our minds. The yogi, having dissolved his mind, when he is without any noticeable outer identity or awareness, has actually merged in the divinity of God. This is a permanent adherence. Even when he is apparently with outer awareness, he has no more goals to reach. He has no more desires. If he has even an iota of desire, he is not a yogi. Tirumular says, Asai arumin, Isharoda inum Asai arumin. He is telling us to cut out all desires, even with God. The purport is that finally, even the devotion to God has to end in the realization of oneness. Yogi can be identified by another method. Once his mind has merged in the ultimate, he should not be affected by the greatest of sorrows. He should not be moved or affected by any calamity at all. He will receive many news of sadness. For the witnesses, he will be seen to be affected, but he will not know sorrow, since he is in a state of permanent bliss. He is Sadananda, ever blissful. He can never get annoyed with anybody, but the one noticeable quality will be a natural flow of kindness towards one and all. Though in his view there is no other, he will be particularly sensitive to the fact that he should not be the cause of the slightest inconvenience to others. Another important characteristic of a yogi is that whatever he does, he will never do it with a sense of doership or ego. In his work, one can never detect even a trace of selfishness. God works like this. He is the yogi of the highest order. Even when he punishes, it is with love and kindness. When Ravana or Hiranyakashipu was killed, it is done out of kindness. It may seem to be harsh. The sleep every day gives us some relief from the agony of existence, isn't it? Similarly, death also releases you from your own compulsions. Another life is given as an opportunity to mend one's ways. We must get out of the series of Punarapi Jananam, Punarapi Maranam, Punarapi Gyani, Jatere Shayanam. Iha samsare, bahudustare, kripaya pare, pahi murare. Meaning a prayer to God to release us from the repeated cycle of birth and death. All this karma, tapas, puja, yajna, and so on are all for this purpose. This graduated raising from the ignorance to jnanam is so that amongst many, 1 in 1,000,000 may attain to the level of a yogi. That is the quintessential purpose. One person raising himself to the level of a Ramakrishna Paramahansa or a Ramana Maharshi, it is said automatically benefits 7 generations on either side. If you sit down and calculate, the number of people benefited will run into millions. KTSV Sharma quotes Kural 339 of Thiruvalluvar. உறங்குவது போலும் சாக்காடு உறங்கி விழிப்பது போலும் பிறப்பு, meaning that death is like sleep and birth is like waking up. Om Shri Mahaperiva Sharanam.